Pursuit. A criminal strikes and fades quickly back into the shadows of his own dark world. And then, a man from Scotland Yard, the famous Inspector Peter Black, and the dangerous, relentless Pursuit. When man hunts man. Now, with Ben Wright starred as the famous Inspector Peter Black of Scotland Yard, we bring you tonight's story, Pursuit of the Lonely Heart.
Morning, sir. I can't be alone. Yeah, oh dear. You'll be happier alone. So sorry, situation.
Quite all right.
Terribly sad, this in the field. Rather an odd hybrid canary. It wasn't at all happy with the others. Not at all. Such hybrids are so often sterile.
Yes.
How may I show you, sir? Canary, of course. Such lovely for anything makes so sweet.
Perhaps you'll be good enough to look at my card, Mr. Leach.
Oh, you know my name. How silly of me. Of course you would. On the window is the Chief Inspector Peter Black, Scotland Yard. Oh, my.
I wonder if I may ask you a few questions, Mr. Leach. They concern your wife. We'd like to know what you did with her body. He was rather an extraordinary little man, quite round, with an angelic face crowned by a fringe of fine white hair. He was obviously the kindest old man in the world. And unfortunately, Scotland Yard also suspected that he'd murdered his wife, Esther, at least 2 years before. There'd been no concrete evidence, only the woman's sudden disappearance. That and accumulated testimonies and clues gathered over a period of time. Therefore, there was no choice but to take him down to the yard for questioning.
This is a terrifying experience, Inspector. Terrifying.
Do sit down, Mr. Leach.
You have no right to roll. No right at all. This shocking accusation, no right at all.
You are not under arrest, Mr. Leach.
I suppose it can't do any harm answering questions. I mean, after all, although you were quite wrong. I mean, it's absolutely absurd, this accusation.
That's kind of you, Mr. Leach. Then we may proceed.
Terribly upsetting.
Yes, of course. Mr. Leach, 2 years ago, your wife, Esther Leach, disappeared.
Yes.
She left in her will an amount of money. I believe it was £2,000.
Yes. But it has not been proved that she is dead. I have not collected one farthing.
You were aware of the terms of the will?
Of course. As she was aware of the terms of mine.
Now, where did you meet your wife?
Through a club, as it were. Things in distress. They advertise, you know. But perfectly respectable.
Yes, I'm sure of it. Mr. Leach, several of your neighbors have testified that on the last night Esther Leach was seen alive, a violent quarrel took place at your home.
Nothing of the sort. I deny. Lovers quarrel, perhaps, but violent? No.
And at the inquest you stated that she left the following morning to take a holiday.
Exactly. Esther was a strong woman. She felt that we needed to be apart for a few days in order to replenish our souls.
She didn't tell you where she was going?
No.
And yet for 3 months you didn't feel it necessary to notify the police when she didn't return?
No. We were adults. Her need to say from my side was understandable.
She wrote to you?
Time to time.
Would you have those letters?
They were penny postcards and I destroyed them. When I realized she'd deserted me, I had no wish to commune with the past.
Well, where were the cards posted from?
A great many places. Esther was a wander. Plymouth, Torquay, Bournemouth, a great many places. She never gave an address.
Yes, I see. Well, tell me, Mr. Leach, did your wife own your shop and the flat above before your marriage?
We were a partnership.
Before you married?
She owned it.
I think that'll be all for the present. Unless you have something to add.
Nothing in fact. Nothing at all, except that I'm shocked to think you suspect me of doing an injury to my wife. You will hear from my solicitor. Good morning.
Now, look here, Black. I took Addison off the case because he wasn't making progress. Now you tell me that I made a mistake. You asked me, sir. All right. What would you have done? Well, I would have gone on where Addison left off. Kept a watch on me. Not let him know we suspected. Well, obviously too late for that. Yes, sir. Blast it, man. We've got to do something. If the fellow's a murderer, he's been laughing at this for 2 years. I'll do what I can, Commissioner. I want the body found. That's what I want. And I want Leach. If he's our man, sir, you'll get him. What do you mean, if he's our man? Well, as I told you, sir, he didn't admit to the charge. So until I can obtain the necessary proof, there's always a slight chance that he did not kill his wife. Poppycock, the man's guilty. Want me to arrest him? Well, you know we can't do that. Insufficient evidence. Exactly, sir. I'm sorry. All right. I'm not myself today. Liverish. I know, sir. I feel just about the same. I had bloaters for breakfast. It was a nasty case. There was no doubt of that. And putting the suspect on guard had made it even more difficult. I went through Inspector Adams's report. I noted one point which seemed to stand out. The missing woman's nephew, Richard Cade, seemed very insistent in his belief that his aunt had no intention of going away, that it was most unlike her to do so. And since this was contrary to Mr. Leach's statement, I decided to pay a call on the gentleman. He owned a garage in the Old Kent Road. Bob, when you finish that job, take care of the Blue Nash Healy, will you? Oil and water. Right. I beg your pardon. Can you tell me where I'll find Mr. Cade, Richard Cade? That's me. Oh. Chief Inspector Black, Scotland Yard. What, again? Look here, one of your chaps has been nosing around asking questions for 2 years now. I know. What's the matter? They give him the sack? No, not exactly, sir. They should have done. Don't notice my auntie's turned up. Well, that's why I'm here, Mr. Cade. You suggested that it was doubtful that Mrs. Leach would have taken a trip under any circumstances. That's what I kept telling them. Of course, they didn't listen. So why do you say that? Look, I knew Auntie before she married that awful swine Leach. She wouldn't take a step out of London. Said she was born here and would die here. Well, she might have changed her mind. Not Auntie, not her. Stubborn old bleeder Auntie was. Was, Mr. Cade? Come on. You know as well as me that Mr. Butter wouldn't melt in your mouth Stanley Leach did her in. He and that girl of his. He's a sly one. Have you seen her? Works in toys at Selfridge's. Uncle Sam's got that balmy look in his eye. Oh, really? Oh, you've got a surprise coming. Ada Willis. Ada's quite a piece of good. Of course, I don't know as I blame him. Auntie did have a face like a suet pudding. Still, there's no reason to murder her. That is going a bit far, isn't it? Yes, a bit, Mr. Cade. Well, I'm sorry to have taken up your time. Oh, that's all right. I hope you do better than the other one. I'd like to know that poor old Auntie is not floating about. Doesn't seem right, somehow. Your anxiety does you credit, Mr. Cade. I'll let you know what happens. Thank you so much. This was something that had not been in Adams's report. A girl, Ada Willis. That piece of information from the morning nephew I hoped would bring us a step closer to the murderer. So I went to Selfridge's and to the toy department. It was early afternoon and the floor wasn't crowded. A girl at the Meccano counter pointed out Ada Willis to me. She was winding a tiny mechanical doll when I saw her, and I remember how extraordinarily beautiful her hands were. This Willis wasn't quite what I had expected.
Oh, good afternoon, sir.
I'd like to see one of those dolls. How does it work?
I'll show you.
How much of it?
2 and 6.
Yeah, that one, please. No, the policeman. He's such a happy little chap.
He's my favorite, too.
Oh, you like policemen?
I don't know. Does one? I've never thought about it, really.
I'm a policeman.
Oh.
I should have said that when I first spoke to you.
Well, why?
Because I'm here on official business.
Oh. Now I understand.
May I ask you some questions, or would you rather wait until you get off? They concern Stanley Leach.
I'm not allowed to chat with customers, but you're hardly that, are you?
No. My name's Black.
Chief Inspector Peter Black. I know. Stanley phoned me.
Oh, did he?
He said he might find out about me and wanted to warn me.
You know why?
Yes. You think he murdered his wife.
Oh, he told you about that.
Oh, yes, some time ago. And I expect you believe that I had something to do with it, too.
Did you?
No.
Is Leach planning to marry you?
Yes. May and December. It's rather funny, isn't it?
Are you going to marry him?
If I have to.
If you have to.
Yes. Unless I can find out what I want before that happens.
I'm not sure that I follow you.
You suspect that Stanley killed his wife. Well, I know that he did. And I'll marry him if I have to prove it. Now do you understand?
Now, the second act of Pursuit of the Lonely Heart. You say that you know Stanley Leach killed his wife?
Yes.
But you have no proof.
Mrs. Leach's body, for peace. Someday I'll find out what he did with it.
Why is it so important to you?
I don't think I want to answer that.
Well, you want to help the police learn the truth, don't you?
I'm more interested in finding out myself. You haven't done much for 2 years.
Will you tell me one thing? What makes you so certain about Leach?
Because if she'd gone away as he said she did, he would have listened to me. And she would have come back.
How do you know?
I'm afraid I can't tell you.
Look, don't you know that if it's to lead to an arrest, I'll have to find out?
Well, I suppose so, but at the moment I can do more than you can.
Even if you have to marry him?
Even that.
At that point, there was no earthly use in warning Miss Willis that from her testimony she could be held as a material witness. In the first place, I knew that she'd be uncooperative. And in the second, it would only serve to give further warning to Stanley Leach, if he was our man. I returned to the yard, and in my office I once again went over Inspector Adamsell's report on the case. But there was a diminutive mechanical policeman on my desk. I found myself thinking of the toy department in Selfridges. And so I made inquiries concerning Miss Ada Willis. Well, I learned a number of things, but not enough. Oh, blood. Moffat.
Afternoon, sir. Anything doing?
How would you like my job, Moffat?
Not particularly, sir.
Are you afraid of the responsibility?
No, sir, but Mrs. Moffat wouldn't be very happy, and I shouldn't like some of the things you have to do.
Are you implying that I like it?
I know you don't, sir. Anything I can do, sir? Cup of tea?
You're a perceptive devil, Muffin.
You ask me, sir, what you need is a long holiday. And if I may say so, find yourself a nice girl and get married.
Yes, well, I didn't ask you, and you may not say so.
Sorry, sir.
Well, you're probably right. Look, Margaret, if you wanted to kill your wife, what would you do with her body?
Never occurred to me, sir.
Well, think about it, then.
Oh, sir. I don't know. Bury her in the garden?
That's too dangerous.
Wrap her up in a parcel and throw her into the sea?
That's being done. She'd wash up sooner or later.
Furnace?
Bones. Teeth. There's always something to give you away.
Not if the furnace hasn't been searched. There wasn't either in Mr. Leach's case.
Well, I don't think that he'd have taken the chance anyway. Have you noticed in the report an interesting thing about Leach? His background?
He's been a jack of all trades, sir.
Allied trades, more like it. Undertaker, hospital attendant, taxidermist. Chap like that would have rather neat methods of disposing of a body.
The first shop seems to be a bit out of place, sir.
No, that belonged to Mrs. Leach. It didn't cost him anything. You can run along, Margaret. I'll see you in the morning.
Right.
During the next week, I went over every piece of information which had been gathered in the 2 years following Felice's disappearance. Moffat and I questioned everybody, friends, tradespeople, and the answers were uniformly similar. Each one suspected, swore, and made direct accusations, but not one could give the slightest shred of evidence. I finally came to the next-door neighbor who claimed to have heard sounds of a violent quarrel between the Leaches. He was a middle-aged man who lived alone, and he had the appearance of a witness who would not be prone to exaggeration or malicious gossip.
I don't know much, but I can tell you, Inspector. 2 years ago now, I gave my evidence to that other chap, Adams, wasn't it?
Yes, Mr. Palmer. Still, if you don't mind, I should like you to refresh your memory.
Do my best.
In your testimony, you stated that the only phrase you were able to hear clearly was, "I won't have it in the house." Is that correct?
That's right. At least kept saying it over and over.
Well, about how long would you say the argument kept up?
Well, I don't know. Half, 3/4 of an hour. I mind my own business, Inspector.
In this instance, Mr. Palmer, I'm rather sorry that you did. And tell me, did you know Mrs. Leach very well before she married?
We'd have a word or two. Nice woman, I'd say. A bit sentimental. I suppose that came of loneliness.
Would you say that until the time you heard the quarrel, they were happy together?
Yes, I'd say that.
Mr. Brown, would you please think very carefully before you answer? Did anything at all out of the ordinary take place next door after Mrs. Leach was missing? Either something you may have seen in the shop, or perhaps in the flat, in the garden, possibly.
I'm not quite sure what would be out of the ordinary.
Digging at night. Hammering. Unusual amounts of smoke from the chimney. Anything?
No, I don't think so.
All right. What about the young woman, Mr. Leach?
That's an odd one. Can't make head or tail of it.
Does she come here often?
I couldn't say. A few times, though, she's been to the shop.
And when did the visit start?
First time I saw her was about a month ago.
Thank you, Mr. Plowman.
But they haven't been much help. I'll show you the door.
Hello, what's that?
Parrot. Leach keeps it upstairs in the flat. Used to belong to her.
Oh.
That's a kid. It reminds me of something.
What?
Must have been a couple of days or so after Mrs. Leach's John. I remember it was about 10 o'clock. The parrot screamed like that. Then about 2 minutes later, Leach knocked on the door. He burned his finger, wanted something to put on it.
Was it a bad burn, Mr. Palmer?
Yeah, quite nasty.
Could it have been caused by acid, then?
I don't know. Is that different?
To a doctor, yes.
He said he burned it on the stove. He must have kept his finger there for a long time to get it looking that way. Didn't seem important enough to tell the police, though, and I forgot.
That's exactly what I meant, Mr. Palmer. Thank you very much indeed. At Scotland Yard, we're in possession of several known facts concerning murder in the British Isles. We know, for instance, that approximately 140 murders will take place during a year, and some 35 of these will occur in London. We also know that a great number of these crimes will be solved within hours. Others take longer according to the difficulties encountered by the scientific laboratories. In the pursuit of the lonely heart, however, we were faced with the problem of few, if any, physical clues. Missing body was an outstanding example. But this fact, too, with the knowledge that we now had, worked in our favor. In Britain, the murderer's chief disadvantage lies in getting rid of the body. In the confines of this island, it poses tremendous problems. And with this in mind, I find Moffat a task which I hoped would, in a few hours, lead us to the body of Mrs. Sandy Leach, whom I knew now, without a doubt, was dead. Then I obtained the home address of Miss Ada Willis and went to... Good evening, Miss Willis. May I come in for a moment?
I'm going out in a little while.
Well, I shan't keep you long. Thank you.
Won't you sit down?
Thank you. Miss Willis, will you tell me the truth now? What is it that you know about Mrs. Leach? Why are you so positive that she was murdered?
I won't tell you.
Because you're afraid?
No.
That's a lovely portrait. This your baby, Miss Willis?
No, a nursery.
Quite a resemblance.
My sister.
You haven't got a sister, nor a brother. You're unmarried and you've been divorced for 3 years.
I've got to go out now.
An appointment with Stanley Leach.
Perhaps.
I think you'd better tell me everything. You see, we know a good deal already. It'll make it easier, I think. Although the information I received from Ada Willis was nearly enough, I made no arrest that evening. As a matter of fact, it took 4 more days to locate the body, and only then were we ready to proceed. With the evidence at hand, I called the principal witnesses and the murderer to the yard. Now, this wasn't done for the sake of a dramatic accusation, but rather with the hope that, confronted by absolute proof, the killer would make a confession, thereby saving the court a considerable amount of money.
You ready, sir?
Right, Moffat. Bring him in.
Come in, please.
Mr. Leach, will you sit here, please? And Miss Willis, here. Mr. Cade, here. Righto. And Mr. Palmer. Yes, sir. Thank you. Now, to begin with, Mr. Leach, we know that your wife is dead.
Oh, my.
Due to the circumstances surrounding her disappearance, certain accusations have been leveled against you.
I know. Unkind, terrible accusations.
Now, Mr. Cade, you stated that your aunt would never have taken a trip away from London.
That's right.
Auntie hated to travel. Never did.
Oh, but you're mistaken. She did. She did go.
Very well. Mr. Palmer, you testified that you heard a quarrel, that the words were not distinguishable except for one phrase.
I won't have it in the house. That's what he said over and over.
Mr. Leach, would you care to tell me what it referred to?
I don't quite remember, but...
Could it have been a baby? A baby that Mrs. Leach was planning to adopt?
Good heavens, no.
Miss Willis, you said that had Mrs. Leach gone away, he would have written and most certainly returned.
Yes. I had a baby 3 years ago. It was sent to an orphanage. Mrs. Leach was going to adopt us since I couldn't take him back myself.
Ada, you didn't tell me.
Go on, Miss Willis.
I was working at Selfridge's, and Mrs. Leach stopped there quite often, and we became friendly. I told her about the baby. She never had one of her own. After she married Mr. Leach, she decided to adopt mine.
Did she tell him about the idea?
No. Not until she made arrangements at the orphanage. That's when she told him. The night
before your wife took her trip, Mr. Leach.
We quarreled, I admit that. But she said she was going away to give me time to think things over.
Mr. Palmer, you said that 3 evenings later, Mr. Leach came over and asked for help.
He had a burn on his finger.
It was an acid burn, Mr. Leach, wasn't it?
No, I burned it on the stove.
Really? So that brings us to the unfortunate woman's body. Martha, did you ask Mr. Buckley to come in?
Mr. Buckley, please.
Mr. Buckley, do you recognize any one of the persons seated here?
That gentleman.
Mr. Leach?
Yes, sir.
Will you tell what you know?
Well, near as I remember, about a year and 10 months ago, he asked me if I'd be interested in buying something for the studio.
You done business with him before?
Oh, yes. When he was in the taxidermist business, we used to purchase animals, if that's right.
Your studio is a film company.
That's right. I'm in property department.
Go on.
Mr. Leach said he acquired a nice skeleton specimen.
Oh, no. All right, Martha, let him go. Now, Mr. Buckley, you bought the skeleton?
Yes, sir. I have the bill of sale.
Well, Mr. Leach?
You couldn't.
The dental work in the skull was identified. It was Mrs. Leach. Yesterday, your workroom was examined. Wire and other substances were found and exactly matched the materials used in the skeleton.
Not well. I shall ask to be excused.
You married her for her money. You quarreled when she proposed the adoption and in a fit of anger killed her.
I didn't mean to kill her. It was an accident. She was a good woman.
Stanley Leach, you're not obliged to say anything unless you wish to do so, but whatever you say will be taken down in writing and may be given in evidence. Take him away, Martin. Our discovery of the skeleton had involved a citywide search and had been based on the knowledge we possessed of Stanley Leach's background. Although the disposal of the body was bizarre, it very nearly accomplished the impossible for the murderer. A perfect murder. Miss Ada Willis was married a few weeks ago, and her baby is once again with her. Pursuit. And the pursuit is ended.